Hello everyone, welcome to Retro Adventures. I'm Dave. I'm honored today to have a guest that's called out touchdowns, home runs, slap shots, and the greatest dunks in gaming history. He probably needs no introduction, but I'm gonna give him one anyway. I'm honored to welcome the legend, the voice of NBA Jam and many others, Tim Kitzrow.
What? Retro Adventures with Dave? You gotta be kidding me. BOOMSHAKALAKA.
Tim, thank you so much for being here today.
My pleasure.
I love hearing the stories from, different interviewers, and I just kind of wanted to have my piece on everything and, go back in time maybe to touch on things that people haven't heard before. The younger viewers just coming into retro and seeing what everything's about. So, you were trained classically as an actor in State University of New York at Purchase.
That's right.
Your love for comedy took you to Second City in Chicago.
Yep.
But can you tell us how playing drums in a weekend band kind of jump-started your voice acting career?
Well, it's a crazy story. First of all, Dave, just congratulations on doing this show. I think you've got a great niche here, Retro Adventures, that's going to highlight everything that was happening at the moment of the day, the favorite serials and TV programs. This is the kind of stuff I'm into. And whenever I do conventions, I speak to people. I say, okay, favorites, Saturday morning, you're a kid, what cartoon is on and what do you eat? What's in the cereal bowl? So I love this kind of approach and telling the stories and keeping them alive for future generations to know the origins of these video games. Because when you realize that we're only in 30 years in NBA Jam, Mortal Kombat, those big games, that's nothing when you think back, 100 years in music,
right.
Going back and looking at discography or films or something. So there's going to be generations, from now. We're still in the early stages, and look how much we've come in 30 years.
Right.
So your role as the archivist and to tell the stories is important because people will forget about the origins, the people, the impact that these games had as things take off. But basically, there's a kind of a talisman. Is that the right word? Is it a talisman? Like you have this lucky, kind of charm, something you hold on to that's meaningful. Well, when I was younger, I loved the drums more than anything in the world. And I had to buy my own set of drums. We had 7 kids in the family and mom and dad weren't going to rush out and get me an expensive drum set. So I saved up money from shoveling snow and raking leaves and painting and all kinds of odd jobs. And I bought a set of drums for $450. Rogers drums. And I started to play, and I thought I was going to be the next rock star, right? But I soon realized that probably wasn't going to happen. And I had another equal love and passion for acting. So when I got into college at Purchase, I brought my drums down with me at least 1 year, put them in a practice room, played. I always kept them going somehow. And when I left college, I said, I can't leave them behind. I moved to Chicago. I put them in a $100 rusted out Volkswagen, drove them back across Canada because it was cheaper, no tolls. And in actual 0-degree temperature, no heat, those Volkswagens, to get those drums to Chicago. So the story is, if without those, I would not be here. Why? Because I decided to have a little weekend band whenever I could, a Sunday afternoon band, just to have fun with some friends. Had I not done that, I would not have met a gentleman who worked out at Williams Valley Midway, Chris Granner. He said, my friend John Hay is doing a pinball game. It is what the first one was Gilligan's Island. And he said, you're an actor, you're kind of funny, you could probably do some impressions. Could you do Mr. Howell? I go, do Mr. Howell? I'd rather do Marianne or Ginger. Ba-doom. How much does it pay? $50. I'll do Mr. Howell. Throw in another 25, I'll do the Skipper and Gilligan, So Gilligan, maybe we could bribe Kona. Oh, love you, where's my teddy? And that was enough to get me in because I'd clearly watched way too much Gilligan's Island when I was a kid. Another great thing, like you never know when your mom, you're wasting your time, go outside. No,
right.
This is my future because I was able to do Mr. Howell. But when I was a kid, I did a lot of voices, cartoons and such. So anyway, I go out to the studio and I'm doing Mr. Howell, and then they said, hey, can you do Popeye? Well, blow me down, it's pussy hacks. What a sweetie girl. Enough to get the Popeye job. And then can you do Rod Serling from The Twilight Zone? And on and on. I became kind of a session musician, the house guy that they would turn to. For me, it was a matter of $50 an hour seems like a great way to make some extra money. I was waiting tables, pursuing, the Second City, auditions, acting. So to me, it was just a lot of fun. Like I'm playing drums and then they go, hey, you want to come in, make $50? what is a pinball game? Maybe 3 hours total, 4 hours. So maybe it's $200 or something. Maybe some of them were a little bit longer. So it's no money to count on. It's not a career kind of thing. But I'm feeling honored that I'm getting in these pinball games.
Sure.
And then 93 rolls around, and boom, we're making a game called NBA Jam. You want to do it? Where does that ever happen as an actor? You want to do it?
Exactly.
No auditions, no other competition, nobody else ever considered. I actually did find out later they did consider getting some TV broadcasters, real broadcasters, but they thought they couldn't afford it. So the long story short is, hang on to your passion, because if I didn't follow and keep that passion alive, you think you're going for one thing, so the drums don't matter anymore. You have to be laser focused, put the blinder, acting. I would never have fallen into this if I didn't keep my other passion active, even if it was just once a month. And if for years at a time I didn't play those drums, and I dragged them from this part of the country to that part of the country. So that's my little lesson.
Wow.
Follow your passion, hold on to it, because without that, and that earned money from being a teenager, I would never be sitting across from you and have all the games I have.
Right.
So let's talk about that a little bit. Mark brings you in on this game, NBA Jam, that nobody knows at the time how big this thing's actually going to be. But what was the dynamic like early on working with Mark and his team, and then how it changed as the successes of NBA Jam start happening? And then even now, what's the relationship like today? I imagine this has to be more like a brotherhood as opposed to just, working on projects.
Yeah, well, first of all, Mark Turmell is, I mentioned Eugene Jarvis being like Mount Rushmore of gaming gods and designers. It's Mark Turmell. I could not have hitched my wagon, to anything better. It's like, like coming to Hollywood and Spielberg says, hey, you want to be in my movie? It's George Lucas. You want to be Indiana Jones? It's like, you want to be the Boom Shakalaka guy? So it's just crazy that, of all the, people in the world, places I could have been, games I could have worked on, I got the one, I got the Spielberg, I got the Lucas, and that's who he is. He is absolutely a gaming god. And, but the funny thing is, at the time, I was, as I said, just kind of a gun for hire, very good friends with John Hay, all the guys in the sound department, working on multiple pinball games. So they were my buddies, with like college fraternity. But Mark, those are the big kids. They were the grown-ups across the street. We were just in the pinball factory. That's where the sound was, like the back of this dirty little factory. Literally, you had to walk across the factory floor where hundreds of games were being assembled, and there's little like drop ceilings. But then when I was there one day, John Hay said, hey, the guys, I didn't even know if he said Mark Turmell, because I wouldn't have even known his name, never worked on a video game, just pinball, they're working on a basketball game. I don't think it had a title then, I'm pretty sure, because they were getting the title later on. However it worked, though, he said, they want you to do the voice. And I've never quite had the definitive story where one time, you'll have to ask Mark, if that he said to John, hey, would you like to do the voice, or do you have a recommendation for who should do the voice? Because John knew basketball, and often back at Williams Valley Midway, I told you before, everybody around the office, like they would do voices. Our Steve Richards doing voice for Mortal Kombat. So I think that then John just said, I think Tim's your guy, like that. So I don't think I've ever corroborated that story completely. But so Mark is more like the Wizard of Oz. It's like he's in the land of Oz, because as I said, the grown-ups are across the street making video games while his kids are making pinball games. And I think maybe twice I walked across the street with John. He goes, you want to take a look at the game? Long, dark hallway, like this room, like really dark. I think these guys are all vampires. They might have been hanging from the ceiling with bats, because they were working around the clock. Really, really, I'm telling you, it was like 3 or 4 guys in there, and saw a couple screenshots or a little bit of play. The first one actually might have been like kind of stick figures. And then the second one, I was seeing the actual players, but it was literally like a first time I met Mark, like, hey, how you doing? And he is so quiet, unassuming, very humble. So there's literally just a few minutes in my memory anyway of going, taking a look on, oh, that's cool. That's what it looks like. And that was it. And I honestly don't remember anything else, but I remember then a little while later, he saw me and he goes, hey, I think I got another game for you. It's gonna be really cool. NFL Blitz. And then did that. I don't remember really any other interaction with him. A couple weeks later, literally walking down the street, coming out of a club playing basketball, a health club, and I bumped into him on the street. He goes, hey, how you doing, Tim? He goes, hey, I might have another game for you. That was MLB. So it was like our relationship was the most bizarre thing. And it was just like, he's bringing me in, but we didn't really have any relationship, except one thing. I actually lived in the building which he lived in for a short time. I was subletting from, I couldn't afford it, his building. I was subletting from a guy who was working for Microsoft, and he worked at Midway doing sound. As soon as he got this really flashy kind of penthouse, he moved to Seattle. He goes, hey, you want to sublet the place? I go, I can't afford that. It was $300 a month. Move in. So guess who lives below me? I'm in the penthouse. Mark Turmell lives below me. He invited me to a party. I go in there, and it's like an arcade. He's got like 10 arcade cabinets, and people are going and playing games. Everything. I felt like I walked into, once again, like the rock star party, the Hollywood party. Like, there's the big boss man who looked like, Robert Plant, fucking rock. And I'm like, oh, so it's your place. Very nice. I live upstairs. Like, so do you own these games, or do they give them to you, or just, like, how does it work? Don't you orders? So that was my one experience the whole time. But then, of course, because we are forever, entangled and related, and there's some umbilical cord with that game. Everybody, John Hayes, Sal, all of us are forever connected to that fraternity. And I've seen him over the years a handful of times, and he has been the kindest person. I've reached out on a couple of different projects. He's been on an advisory board. He helped me with another game company I was working with. He's taking a look at things. We went out to meet him in Vegas with another company group pitching a game. Could not have been more helpful. And then I was so grateful that when the 25th anniversary came up, I talked to the head of marketing with the Clippers. I said, we got to bring in Mark Turmell. We got to celebrate the game. And here's the creator. It was a real treat for me to go to half court with Mark before the game, introduce him as the legendary designer for NBA Jam. And then during a timeout or a halftime thing, they had a little Nerf hoop for little kids like 3, 4, 5, 6 years old. So we got his son to play in the game, and I was down there with a microphone announcing it, and he was courtside with his wife, and it just could not have been a sweeter thing. So, and we still do. I mean, text back and forth. He's always there if I have a question about something or advice, or to meet with somebody else from a different company, to look at a game I'm working on. So the relationship continues. We've gone back and forth over the last few years about possibilities of new NBA Jam. He'll have to answer the specific questions, but there's been a lot of interest, and for a while when the big crypto money was there in NFTs, seemed like there were some players that were going to make it happen. So my biggest question is, when are Mark and myself, when are we going to be back together, reunite to do an official jam? Because the other thing that I forgot to say is we also asked, kind of like Ships in the Night, when he was at EA when we remade Jam. He was down in Florida at Tiburon, but he was kind of overseeing the production that was going on in Vancouver for NBA Jam. And then when I did Blitz, I did go down to Tiburon. He was there while I was doing the recording sessions, but then he left before the game was finished and shipped. But it was really nice to go down, both of those titles that he was at EA while I was redoing them. And that was the first time I think I sat down, had dinner with him at a great restaurant. He was able to, have a martini and, say, hey, man, I wouldn't be here without you. Thank you. So, yeah, great guy.
It's an incredible story. Yeah, I don't want to call it luck because you're very talented, but just the circumstances that put you there, and then the explosion that just happened afterwards. It's just incredible. So,
and I think it goes back to creativity. When you're younger, I thought I had to make this choice. I'm going to either be a drummer or an actor. And later on, you start to realize what you are is a creative person, a creative artist. You do many things. And if you shut off one thing, then you might be shutting off all these other things, because the networking and the places you go. And if you're around creative people, guess what? You're in a band. Well, it made sense that, what their job was at the studio? To do all the music for pinball and video games, and write the script and hire the talent. So there's talented people in all these creative arts. That's what I'm saying. Also, You're a more balanced person if you do more things than just one. So, once again, preparation meets opportunity. People call it luck. So I was prepared. I was ready for that moment. It was everything that I love. I love sports. I love doing mimicry, cartoon voices. I love acting. I love writing. I love comedy. So everything was fulfilled in one, distilled moment, because I said, yes, I can do this Gilligan Island game.
You have voiced all the major North American sports. So you got NBA, NHL, NFL, MLB, you've done NCAA, of course, many others. But, that not only requires a ton of skill, but a deep immersion into all of those sports. So, was there any sport that you had to do the most?
The fact that I did all of those, first of all, is just, I still can't believe it, because even I think in the network broadcasting, Marv Albert might, and a couple other people in the early days have done, like he did the Giants, he did the Knicks, trying to think, he did baseball, I might have did it, but there are very few people, even, as national broadcasters, that do that. So to have that as a feather in my cap, very proud of that. But the reality is, I didn't have to know anything about, like, hockey, for instance. That was one sport. I loved hockey when I was a kid, but it's a fast-paced game that I never followed it on TV. And in the 90s, you didn't want to watch it on TV, small TVs.
Right.
Whatever.
So you didn't have to do a deep research into anything with the the lingo or the fan base. It just all came naturally.
So that one was, and that was a company out of Vancouver called Black Box, was contracted by Midway, because those Canadians know their hockey, right? So they were meticulous, and every single bit of the script. It's the only script also I didn't do a lot of writing or much writing. I did a lot of my little comical things, little asides, and what we call just like a random comment. But they knew the sport, so I didn't have to do any research into that. The sports, though, that I absolutely love and knew very well were baseball, and basketball, especially at the time was the Bulls' time in Chicago,
right?
And football. And I was offered by Dan Forden, and if you guys know your stuff out there, Dan Forden, Mortal Kombat musician. He did all the great music for that. He's produced many games. Well, he said, "Hey Tim, why don't you start writing some of this stuff?" Because we knew the vein now. NBA Jam was fun and over the top, but he goes, "We can have some fun with this being, a little like rougher and edgier and sarcastic." So that's where the persona really kind of developed for me, where I went away from just being a kind of a Marv Albert sound-alike, because I was just really trying to mimic the sound of an NBA game that you would hear on Sunday. And whose voice was that? It was Marv Albert's. Yes! All that high energy, and Vinny Johnson comes in the microwave, they called me, "He's heating up! He's on fire!" That was Marv. That's what got me up into that register. But when Blitz came, it was, "Welcome to NFL Blitz 99. Of course, I want to make it rougher and funnier. Oh, he just ripped that guy's head off. Oh, it was just his helmet. Damn it." Well, that's unsportsmanlike conduct out there, and that's why the fans love him. Way to go. That's the unsportsmanlike play today. Man, that guy's got some mental issues. He's working out on the field. So that's where the beginning of the true, like, it all came together, where Dan goes, basically just took the leash off, the reins off, and said, "Go." And of course, the NFL was like, "What the hell is this?" They took a lot of stuff out. They took a lot of crazy kills out, crazy tackles out. So that was our first test with, like, how far we can push it. If you go crazier, then they can't take everything out.
Right.
Then MLB Slugfest came along, same thing. I was basically just offered to write the script. So I wrote everything in there except some of the, like, very perfunctory, like, the pitch calls and this and that, whatever. I also brought in the enormously talented Kevin Matthews, who was the top radio jock here in Chicago, 10 million listeners a week. It was him, Brandmeier, Gary Meyer, Steve Dowell, like the lineup on the loop. And he is a character called Jimmy Shorts, the funniest character in the world. And he basically improvised all the beginnings, but then I wrote the other stuff. That was the most fun ever.
Drives one to right field.
You ever eat pig knuckles?
Brown, rounds third. No, I haven't, but they sound tasty. And Brown scores to put his team ahead.
So now I'm into this full-on, like, writing an Adult Swim cartoon. To me, it was more of that. I was writing a TV show, a movie script that happened to be about two baseball commentators. It wasn't a video game for me. It was, what's the life of these guys? What do they do? Who are they? Where's the comedy? So that was crazy fun. And then I get back to NBA Jam with EA Sports 2010, 2011. hey, Tim, write the script. So it wasn't any longer just rejected and all those basically superlatives to, have a punctuation for every play.
Right.
Now there was more space in the game because there's more technology, so I could have longer phrases. And that's when the crazy stuff started to come out. Like, LeBron can't go to work without his coffee and donuts. You bring the coffee and I'll bring the Dunkin'. Boom shakalaka. And the Dunkin' drive-through lane is wide open for LeBron tonight. Or Giannis, boom shakalaka. All you can do is hand him his diploma because he just got his MBA degree from Dunkin' on you. Kaboom.
I love it, man.
He rummaging through my wife's top dresser drawer. He finds nothing but nylon. That's where the fun stuff started to come in,
gosh.
And he comes up with a fisherman's nightmare, nothing but net. That was when there were no rules. There was really no one looking over our shoulder. EA was not really paying attention to what we were doing. And in the end, sadly, they did not even really put much marketing behind this game.
I agree.
It was at that time, I think it had already earned close to $2 billion between the arcade, then all the different home versions. And here, they're the biggest company on the planet. And there was basically no fanfare. It's the beginning of social media. They tried to do some TikTok, TikTok wasn't even there, some Twitter stuff. But I always felt like that game, because it started out in the arcade as a cabinet, but only lasted for a couple months.
Yeah.
Because everyone was going home. So Slugfest, there are a few arcade cabinets out there, but it went to the home market. I'm going back to Slugfest, I'm sorry, but the NBA Jam with EA Sports, I felt that if they had put some money into it, that could have been a hit again. The most common thing I hear it shows that I didn't know EA did I didn't know you had a version in 2010 or 11. So that was very sad for me.
Man. Do you feel like you had a little motivation? There's a story that's out there that you would take your son to arcades and you played a game called Run and Gun by Konami, and you realized the voice was just kind of drab and monotone. Was that kind of a motivation of like, man, I can just do this way better?
Well, here's the thing. When I never really went to arcades at all. So when it came out, then I was terribly curious, well, what does it look like? What does it sound like? What are people doing? React. So I'd take my son there. And I think the first time I went in there, for whatever reason, there were only a couple people around the cabinet. Could have been the time of day, a big place, whatever. But then I see a whole bunch of people around Konami Run and Gun, and it's a black and white animated game. And this is weird, but there seemed to be a lot of excitement. But then I heard the guy in the game go, "Nice shot, 4-2, lays it up, count it." And I was like, man, this guy's on lithium or something. Wow. But sure. But I was a little worried, like, is this bigger? Is this the more popular game? And maybe it was even that afternoon. It was too many years ago to realize. But I know that certainly within the coming days or weeks when I stop back there, 10, 15, 20 people, not uncommon to see around, screaming, yelling, quarters on the cabinet. I got next. Became the virtual playground, the first video game, I guarantee you, that became a virtual sports playground. The high fives, the yelling, the screaming, and I'd come up behind it and could not help it. And to this day, I'll do it like, rejected, get that shot out of here, boom shakalaka. The guys, they turn around like, who do you but? Hey man, you sound like the guy in the game. I go, dude, I am the guy in the game, boom shakalaka.
They ever believe you?
How could they doubt me? Like, I sounded like them, but there's no one will ever know my face. But that was fun to have this incognito thing. But it was really fun to be part of that excitement and in real time get people kind of jazzed up. And I would do the same at the Y when I would play basketball, probably 3 or 4 times a week. The young 10, 12, 13-year-old kids were in there for their program. And I'd start doing boom shakalaka and calling their names, whatever. And they go, "Man, are you really the guy from the game?" I'm like, "I am." He go, all his friends in, they get like 10 people just look at me. Like if they looked at me hard enough, they say it again. Like, "Yellow, go downtown." Like,
that is so awesome, man. And
speaking
of that though, is when you say, it's hard to put the face with the voice. So, when you found fame before social media even existed, when things like Twitter and Instagram came around, what was that moment like that you were able to finally, everybody could finally put a face to the voice and then you could connect with your fans directly? Like, what was that whole moment like?
Well, I've never been a big social media person. And in the beginning, Twitter, I had no idea what I was doing. I think the EA set up an account for me, which is still out there. You probably find a bunch of stuff. So I didn't really get it that way. The deal for me was when I went to EA to do the 2010, 2011 stuff. I show up and the producer, Trey Smith, goes, "Hey, I hope you don't mind, before we go in the studio, the guys on the team really excited to meet you, and they think they want to like get some pictures and your autograph." And when I heard those two things, like, what? They want what? I'd never, met fans before. So this is 17 years since the original came out.
Right.
And now, and I show up, and there's like 15 people, all with cameras, and he made copies like NBA Jam banners, whatever, for me to sign. And I went and signed all these things and taking pictures. And that blew my mind, as they said in Cisco Kid, Spill the Wine. And that really blew my mind. I dreamt I was in a Hollywood movie. I was a big star of NBA Jam. But that was it. When I started to get this reverence from people, and oh my God, what an honor to meet you, because the whole production team, everybody in the office at EA, that's the first time. Because when I was back at Midway and doing the other stuff, it was just, hey, Tim's here. It's like I was just, I was just invisible. I met my close friends, like, we got along just like normal friends, but there was no one like, hey, it's Tim. Oh, you're the. Once that started with that, and then doing a few, some social media things. It started to catch on, but the original time and going to conventions, I didn't know conventions existed.
Mm-hmm.
I think 2018 maybe was my first one. And
Wow.
And someone said, yeah, I was promoting Mutant Football League. And I went up there with the game's creator to Milwaukee, and we just sat at a table. I didn't have a banner, didn't have anything to sign. And he would just tell people, hey, this is the voice of our game. It's Tim Kitzrow, the voice of NBA Jam. The only way they would know it was me is for him to tell them. And then to be, oh, cool. So then the promoter said, why don't you come up next year by yourself? I was like, to do what? Well, to speak, to sign autographs, take pictures. So it was a whole new world. And since then, I've had so much fun since that time. And I travel often with the Mortal Kombat martial art, superstars, Dan Pesina and Carlos Pesina and Rick DeVizio, all these guys are legends. And we just have a ball. So it's kind of like this Cinderella story, right? The game was kind of dormant for 17 years since the original arcade. And then there was no social media, there was no conventions. And basically the arcade business died, and me along with it in a lot of ways. I had certain things going on, other projects, whatever, but it really started to ramp up during the retro gaming shows, and it's brought me more work, more games, etc. So, yeah.
Man, that is absolutely an incredible story. And going off of that, where people are starting to put the face to the voice, and
Mm-hmm.
You're starting to gain a little more notoriety from actually being recognized. Was there a moment when you realized you were becoming a part of gaming history?
That's a slow process. It kind of goes hand in hand with the other question about when I realized that people were wanted to meet me, wanted to have me sign things. I mean, that was clear because, well, first of all, we know NBA Jam and BOOMSHAKALAKA are the two things that will live forever. Like just the marquee, the NBA Jam marquee, I think it's more recognizable around the world than the NBA Jam logo.
Wow.
It's such a strong and powerful thing. And for years, I don't remember the first time, but BOOMSHAKALAKA has found its way into not just the sports vernacular, but the pop culture vernacular.
Right.
And TV shows, and I think it was in Wolf of Wall Street, DiCaprio, and boom, TV shows, and this and that and the other thing.
Yeah.
So I was kind of getting aware of that, but it was, I don't know when it was, but I just went, wow, this is forever and ever. When all I have to do is, do you know BOOMSHAKALAKA? Like someone said, what do you, it's like, yeah, like, that's me. Like, what? No way.
And then you pull it out on them.
And the funny thing is, it's a single word, single phrase, single superlative that was never intended. If you do some research, it's hard to find the exact origin. Like the word BOOMSHAKALAKA, there was a Caribbean song that had it.
Right.
A couple other songs. I think it was mostly music. Later, Sly and the Family Stone did I Wanna Take You Higher.
Yep.
BOOMSHAKALAKA, like a boom shaka. But he wasn't saying boom shakalaka like a boom. It was like boom shakalaka, boom shakalaka, whatever it was. It wasn't
Right.
boom shaka. It was like a laka. The guy who was listening to it in the studio, John Carlton, thought it was boom shakalaka, and he just yelled down the recording studio, out the door. He was, hey, tell Tim to say boom shakalaka. I was like, what is boom shakalaka? Because I was pretty certain that I knew all the phrases for basketball.
Right.
That's not what I heard Marg say. So I just wanted to make sure. It's like, what does this have to? I had no idea. And he goes, just say it. I went, all right. boom shakalaka. And that was pretty much it. I might have done 2 or 3 takes on it. So the idea that came out of nowhere, and now it has become one of the most famous terms in sports, or recognizable terms anyway. It's pretty cool.
It's everywhere. Do you take it as a compliment, or do you kind of get annoyed when people try to do it and it's just they're not doing it with the level of intensity that you would? And do you think it kind of undermines the value of that catchphrase?
Or a couple things. The idea that if any game ever, is there a more recognizable one word? I know Mortal Kombat has like finish him or get over here or whatever. I mean, there's certain things, but I'm so proud that I went to Doc Mac's Galloping Ghost. And if you have never been, it's in Brookfield, Chicago, the largest arcade in the world, over 1,000 games. Wow. So when you look at that sea of games, I go, I got the one game that was the most popular game of all time, money-wise, and the pop culture thing. I am so lucky. And one word, Boom Shakalaka, says it all. So I will never tire of that. And the fact that little kids know it. I was stopped on the street in Utah for the All-Star game. I was out there doing an appearance with the NBA, greeting people, doing videos with them. But at night, afterwards, I'm coming out of a restaurant, and a little kid with his parents goes, "Hey, are you the Boom Shakalaka guy?" I guess he saw me at the convention or something, but just funny, Yeah. Because of that, I love it, man. It's like, I'm very blessed to have a word, a phrase, but it means fun. It means excitement when you say it. It brings some like enthusiasm and fun, because as a player, you knew when you heard it, generally, if it was you dunking, it was good. Yeah. So it's all connected to those endorphins, your brain. It's like, I did something good,
I look at it as one of these things where, a Michael Jackson song or a, Journey, Don't Stop Believing. It's one of those things, no matter what generation, as soon as they hear it, everybody knows it. And it's with your catchphrases, not just Boom Shakalaka, but a lot of them. They're all recognizable no matter what generation it is, and that's got to be like, very fulfilling to you of like what you've created.
Yeah, and the one weird thing is though that when I did them, it's like a guitarist doing a solo in a song 30 years ago, and if he never played it again, and suddenly someone put the guitar in his hand, like he's going to do different phrasing, it's going to have different intonations, whatever. Think of Jimmy Page. So I was at a show recently, and a guy goes, "I do a really good impression of you," and his girlfriend's like, "Oh, come on, stop showing up." Like, no, I really do. I go, "Let me hear it." And he does a few, of the lines, and one of them was like, "From downtown," and Boom Shakalaka. However he said it, I went, that doesn't sound anything like me. But then I went back and I listened to it. He had the inflections, the intonations down, but I just over the years and with the EA Sports version changed it. I never thought about I have to say it like I said it 30 years ago.
Right.
So that's kind of cool that this guy knew exactly to mimic the sound like a sound wave, which was, and now I look back at that, it doesn't even sound like me. I feel it's like this out of body experience, like who's that guy? But I go, after all these years, I do say pretty good. It's a pretty good mashup of what that game is when you look at it, how much fun it is to look at and watch. I've been at many shows where they've turned the sound off because they have so many people playing in a competition that they didn't want to have like the sound going on all the TVs. And without the sound on, it changes everything. Yeah. And that's the first time I realized like my contribution was more than just I was connected to a famous game. It really adds something to it. And I'm able, after all these years, to have a perspective and a distance go, that guy's really good.
Yeah.
So
yeah. When we talk a lot about history, gaming history, you've gone on record to, say that NBA Jam should be inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame. Is it because this game, you see it as a pivotal moment that joined video games and the NBA pop culture?
Yeah, well, first of all, what I was talking about, the further away we go from that moment, it's like the Big Bang Theory, Big Bang, Boom Shakalaka. We realize that changed everything. Video games and sports were not as like like the Madden craze and all the other stuff. I'm not sure of my history, like where everything was, but all I know is that exploded, and it changed the way kids especially found sports.
Right.
Kids around the world, and I've heard this from many people around the globe, including a guy, Rayan Ali, who wrote a book called NBA Jam. NBA Jam, the book, Boss Flight book, so you can look it up. You can get a digital download or a hard copy. He said he was in Pakistan, I believe, and there was a game. He would never have found the NBA, would never have had any interest in it. And people found an interest in the NBA because of the game. And to this day, a lot of women, too, say when I was a kid, my brother wanted me to play it. I didn't think I'd like it, but it was so much fun. So it's not a traditional, you don't have to be a sports gamer, but people did end up finding their way to the NBA. They knew who all the players were, so pre-internet, pre-everything else. They're finding out about the Dallas Mavericks and this team and Golden State and different players around the league. Back then, you only knew the marquee players from the Lakers, the Celtics, the ones who would play on Sunday afternoon.
Right, yeah.
It really opened up. It was more of a marketing tool for the NBA than they ever admitted or realized, and certainly at the time, it was like, video games. It has nothing to do with our real game, real product. So all those great players, it's also the golden era of the NBA, right? The Bulls and like Magic Johnson just about to leave, but we know those early 90s. So all those players will be forever enshrined. It's like the legacy of that era. Ewing, et cetera, of course, Pippen. Jordan, unfortunately, wasn't in it. Right. But it brought so many fans in. It was the beginning of, look where we are now. Look at the multi-billion-dollar business of sports gaming, et cetera. The fact that NBA Jam started it, it made more of a connection and an impact with the NBA. We're still talking about it today. And all those young players played it, and it influenced 2K and NBA Streets and, Ballers and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So I certainly believe it has a place there. And I've been there. I was at the induction a few years back. And when you go through there and you see all the things related to basketball, certainly having an arcade machine there, and then image of the player select screen of all the players that were in the original, how cool that would be, like an Andy Warhol wall of all the players in the player select with their attributes. And that game, like, have a couple pairs of shoes, the players, whatever, have some testimonials from the young people, or from Shaq, who said he used to have 2 games, arcade games, one for his home and one taken on airplanes, brought to his hotel so he could play it. I mean, so yeah, NBA Jam had an impact on that entire generation. Those were the first younger people in the NBA. They were video gamers, and they were in a video game. It was very cool. But even if it's just a nod to have a game in there, with a little treat, like when it came out, this was the beginning. This was the moment where video games met the NBA, and this game was the most popular game of all time, sports game, made $2 billion. Let people know. So the older folks that are now 40s or 50s, that were 10, 15, 20 when the game came out, or younger kids go, oh, I remember this is when the game changed, where there was no real connection with basketball and video games before NBA Jam. It's an important moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I completely agree. And I wanted to do something to help this, give it a push. I went on change.org, made a petition up. I'll share the link in the video description. My goal is to get it out into the world, get it cycling, to get enough signatures to maybe draw some attention to this, get it to the NBA Honors Committee, and plead our case that this does deserve to be, have its spot in the Hall of Fame. It is a key moment. I think everything you said is spot on. It deserves a place there. So
the funny thing is, when I spoke to someone there about it, their first thing was, first of all, well, we have no room for any new exhibits for a year or so. It's like, well, it's been 30 years anyway, 32 years. So what's another year? But then they said, well, these things cost a lot of money. So how much do you think would cost? You put it in there as the exhibit. It all has to be is on the first floor, a cabinet, some pictures, a couple, placards that you can read, or some TV monitors that has some information, some gameplay interview with players. We're not talking about $1 million installation.
Right.
It's an arcade cabinet, a couple, trophies and et cetera. And it's not that hard to do. So I hope that they would realize, first of all, their core audience, if you're 30, 40, or 50 right there, you know NBA Jam. So
Right.
when you go to the Hall of Fame, and we know, anytime you can have something that brings more tickets in, sells more tickets, and you have a big blast, like come and see the original NBA Jam exhibit and with blah, 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 some interviews with players and, some archival stuff, it makes it fun. And then the guys can go and look at, hey, that's how you play games on your phone. This is what it was. Like, it's a history lesson, and it's fun because guys like you and people who grew up, they go, that's my world. That's like, it's fun to go to the Hall of Fame basketball and go, the NBA Jam doesn't exist. To me, it's just weird. It's just weird to not have it there recognized. When you go to the Hall of Fame, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, they have the Rolling Stones pinball game. They have anything that's related, like, because so many rock stars love being in pinball games, which is what Stern Pinball does often now. But if you have like the biggest NBA game ever in history, and you choose not to have it in there, that's a conscious decision. So that's why it's even weirder to me.
Right.
I picture a ceremony to have like we're going to have this exhibit going on, even if it was a limited run, and then they could get an idea. As I said, you could do it on a small scale. But imagine inviting a handful of players that were in the original game, just to have that fun of them talking, meeting with the fans, me up there on the podium, and then have a competition of some of the old OGs with like you can enter a raffle, like a guy like you, a normal person, could play, at one of the original NBA Jam guys, Gary Payton. I've met him several times, including at the Hall. He said he's got 2 arcade cabinets. We had one specially made for him because he was not in the original. He was a rookie, but he wanted to be in it so badly. He or his agent called Midway, and we made a custom one with him in it. And, Peyton. And same for Jordan and Ken Griffey. Those 3 had their own cabinets made, shipped to them because they were not in it. Of course, Ken Griffey wasn't, but he was such a huge fan and one of the biggest superstars on the planet at that time. He's friends with Gary Payton in Seattle, and he goes, I want to be an NBA Jam. Well, you know what? Big celebrities can do what they want.
Yeah,
absolutely. Make it happen. Jordan was real upset because he wasn't in the game. We don't even know whether he made the decision not to or his business people, because a player's licensing agreement, whatever. He knew he wasn't going to really see any money from it. He thought, well, why should I put my name on something that's going to make them a bunch of money?
Right.
So I'm going to opt out or leave myself open to have a special contract with another game company to do it, et cetera. So whatever reason, as I said, I like the idea that he never even knew that it was turned down. All he knows is that everybody in the NBA and all the kids are playing NBA Jam, and he goes up to like, I can't play as myself. He said, you think Michael Jordan is going to play as another player?
Right.
Get that shit out of here. No way. So he had to have his own. So his agents made the call, had one given to him. And I would love to finally just meet him. I met him when I was younger, working at a restaurant, waiting tables, when NBA Jam was being made around 92, 93, 94. During the championship run, I was right down the road at an Italian restaurant. So I waited on him a few times. I always thought it was interesting. I'm making NBA Jam. He's not in. I'd love to, tell him about it. Or why don't you get the game? So I want to ask him, where is that game and what it
Yeah.
is it still around? Can you imagine how much that thing would be worth? And if he's given it,
I was just thinking that. I'm like, maybe someday he auctions it off and, donates the proceeds to charity or something. But just
that was my idea. Would be that. For the Hall of Fame, now a hacker has found the EPROMs or whatever, where the special version we made for him was buried somewhere in the EPROMs, and a hacker found it. So you can find a version of the Jordan game. And I was at a convention, so you can play as Jordan. But I still think to have a cabinet or his cabinet as the for limited time, or Gary Payton's, like I said, Ken Griffey, get those 3 original cabinets, because that tells a unique story. Yeah. Have them all autograph it, and the backstory of how it was so popular that these 3 guys had custom cabinets made, and that you would be able to play and see the Holy Grail Jordan game. That's a pretty big story, right?
Oh, that'd be huge. Absolutely huge. A cool project that you're currently working on, Mutant Football League 2, where you voice Grim Blitzrow. I don't know where you came up with that name.
The greatest announcer that ever lived.
Also, my name's Junior, and my name is Bricks.
What's cool is you're bringing the energy that you pioneered in the 90s, but this time it seems like you have a little more creative freedom. It's kind of adding a little Adult Swim humor to it. How's that writing and recording process been compared to doing the sports licensed games?
Well, at the end, I said the NFL was all the leagues, like my kind of humor. Someone just sent me something the other day from MLB Slugfest, lines that were cut out, rejected by the MLB.
Yeah.
And they were very funny. And I realized, well, we can't because it's a family entertainment kind of thing. But the NFL thing, when we did a version that nobody knows about in 2012 with EA Sports, they released it. It was kind of tame, kind of watered down. But Michael and the Mutant Football League, anything is game. And our idea was, think of an Adult Swim. Think of even like Futurama, because it is a post-apocalyptic world where in the huge stadiums, robots, orcs and skeletons and zombies battle each other. We parody every NFL team and player, but they have this great look. There's all these dirty tricks. It's fun. It's crazy. Adult humor, lots of blood. So he just said, give me a voice to this world. So he created these three characters, which are very, the two sidekicks are very cartoonish, because I thought with all the blood, with all the violence, you need that like Looney Tunes, Bugs Bunny approach to, when Anvil drops in the head and someone gets whacked and killed, shot in the face. It has to be humorous.
Right. Absolutely.
So I'm still doing my play-by-play. Giving it the sound and authority, of an NFL game, but of course it has a darker side. So creating an entire world to give life to like the Looney Tunes, like an Adult Swim, like Futurama, like with no script, with no characters. There's the world. What a blessing to be offered something to create the world, the characters, the style, the tone, the humor. It's been just absolute thrill for me. We did our first version in 2017. New ones should be out early December.
Yeah.
And we've got some big treats in it. If you guys are familiar with the icon, the legend, Lil Flip, the rapper who did Game Over. Well, this game ain't over yet, because Flip is going to be in the game. He's going to have his own team, and he's going to be a star in it, and he's going to put his own posse together. Might be some other rapping legends, etc. So we're gonna start to bring in other celebrities. They can play each other, et cetera, et cetera. It's a cool as hell game. And when anyone asks me, did you know Jam would be a hit? Did you know Blitz would be a hit? Absolutely not. First of all, I was too young, had no perspective on it. Didn't know what a successful game was, didn't know about numbers. But what I do know now is there were just, 3 or 4 mega companies that put out arcade games, generally, the ones that made it to the top. Well, in this world, this landscape, there are literally thousands of indie companies releasing games every month, every day.
Right.
To get heard, to get seen. It's not just the big three. It's not just Midway, EA, or whatever the different, Gottlieb, releasing things to the arcade. And so that was the only place you saw things. If something went to the arcade, it was successful. If people loved it, it became the success. You don't have a place where you can do that now. You can scroll for an hour looking for new games. You can read reviews. Your friends would tell you. Mutant Football League did make the Xbox preview out of thousands of games. So that's hugely significant. But I've always felt that if this game came out at the arcades back then, because of the crazy, beautiful visual, the excitement, my humor, etc., and the fact that it's football but with no in rules, are you kidding me? This would be, honest to God, one of the biggest hits to be remembered, like Mortal Kombat and Jam and Blitz. The only thing that has changed, it was an independently produced $1 million Kickstarter with almost shoestring, no money for marketing. We're hoping to turn that around for the new version. But I realized how important the grassroots and the folks like you spreading the word to go, hey, this is really cool. Oh, and it has the NFL Blitz BOOMSHAKALAKA guy doing the crazy, weird shit again. So I hope people check it out. But yeah, man, it's been so much fun. How lucky am I all these years later to have another guy like Michael, who originated the game in '93, same year as Jam, to go, I'm still making this fun, crazy, over-the-top arcade style that EA and other people gave up on because they thought it was old-fashioned. Well, just because jazz was created earlier, or the blues was created earlier, doesn't mean it's not good music, right? Because arcade style came from 20, 30 years ago. People for a while were like, oh, that's old fashioned. I don't listen to my mom's music, my dad's music. They put it in that category. Kids want, first person shooter. They want sim games. They want to be able to manage their team. They want to see commercials and free throws and basketball. They want to see it imitating the reality of a basketball game. No, I don't. A lot of gamers okay, they might play those. They might have that. Really, they're almost more sports fans than video game fans, because they want to have that feeling of they're the manager, the GM, whatever. But when you go for 2 or 3 hours and in the NBA 2K, you're watching foul shots and the pace is like this. That's different than a video game that was made just for fun, adrenaline rush, in and out. You got 10 minutes? Good. You got 2 minutes, 5 minutes, you can get in and get out. You don't have to commit for an afternoon or morning. To me, that's the other thing that to a new generation, when they discover Mutant Football League, they're going to go, oh, you mean this is a video game that you could just have like an incredible rush for 5 minutes and be done, and then challenge your friend? That's a great thing.
Absolutely.
I hope that's where if you're younger, you don't know that it's supposed to be old-fashioned and no good anymore. It's just new and loud and fast and fun and irreverent. And your parents should say, don't you listen to that Grim Blitzrow. He's got a filthy mouth. There's too much violence. And Bomb Shady pulls on a shotgun and shoots the defender's face off. That gives a whole new meaning to the term shotgun formation. There's an actual dirty trick where you can pull out shotguns and shoot people, shoot refs, kill refs, bribe refs.
Oh my God.
You can entire other team on hallucinogenic mushrooms if you're playing in the chronic mile-high city, the Broncos, and it's crazy fun.
Oh my God, I cannot wait to try this out. Improv, you're incredible with it, and I'm sure your improv skills come in a lot to play with a website you run called whosaidwhatnow.com, where it allows people to reach out to you to get personalized messages, podcast intros, things like that. So I'm sure you're always being creative, coming up with new things for what people are asking for. But is there anything, a weird request you've got, or like what's the funniest thing you've ever gotten a request for?
Well, thanks for mentioning that. So Who Said What Now, and you can find that at my website. It was meant to be a way for, if I'm not at a convention like you're somewhere else, you want a little voicemail. You want, for your phone, which people don't use anymore, but it's really kind of cool because they can leave it on their phone forever. It doesn't get people sick and tired of it. But the ones who call them that know, they like, man, I love that NBA Jam voicemail. So it was a way to just go, if you want to like send a little gift to a friend, a shout out, or a little, something to your, family or friends or whatever. It's just really about, to me, a gift. It's fun for people to have their own voicemail. Like I could do a voicemail for you. But whenever people give me something, I always take whatever they give me and I just do a complete improv, and I give them some crazy shit they never expected. And that's what I love. I mean, you get reactions, people sending me back emails, even though it's a third party, like, wow, you blew my friend's mind. And I've asked people to sometimes videotape when they receive certain things. But of the crazy things, the most, not the crazy stuff that sticks with me, it's the most touching thing that I didn't expect, is I got a thing for kind of a long message from a son to his father about playing NHL hits, and it was a Christmas gift of how much they loved playing together. That was their favorite thing to do when he was younger, and it's still a bond for them. And he wanted to say, you're the greatest dad in the world, and all these special, sentimental, wonderful, heartfelt things about his dad. Well, I took that and turned it into like a kind of introduction, welcome to NHL hits tonight's, and I put his father in the role against his son, did crazy stuff, but then came back around, said, gave him the heartfelt message, and it was so meaningful. And he posted something on YouTube where he gives it to his dad in the kitchen. His mom was filming it, and you just see his dad break down. And it was the sweetest thing in the whole world to know that it meant so much to a father and a son. And all these years later, it was like, how cool a gift. Like, you can buy a lot of shirts and sweaters, but when I became the mouthpiece for a son to say things that are maybe hard for anyone, that are really about love, endearment, about how much someone means to you. Had folks that have lost family members, lost a dad, lost a brother, lost a sister at shows, and then after we take some pictures, I do a video and I invoke them playing the game with that family member. And it just, we're all in tears at the end, but we have a good laugh because it's the spirit of the game, the enjoyment, the memories, the emotional memories, the endorphins of all the hours of years with your best friends, family members of playing that game. That's what they respond to with my voice, because that's what they heard. So it's so much fun to give back to people, to create messages, to give shout outs to people, and that kind of thing. It's a wonderful thing. That's the biggest joy, other than obviously the creative part of making the games is to have feedback. I'm not like an actor that's I'm doing a movie and I can go sit in the audience or have people come up and go, boy, you're really great. Like when I meet people at shows, I can get all the real stories in real time of what it meant to them, who they played with. You know, as I said, the parent, the loved one, the child, the brother, sister that they lost. And I get these really incredible stories, and then we have fun together. It's such a wonderful sharing. And in the world gone mad today, it is one of the takeaways, and I say in all of my panels, this is the one safe place, the gaming community. Because all of us at heart, and we love the games this much, especially as adults, we're still playing them, talking about them.
Yeah.
There's a connection to the innocence, to the love, to sheer fun and enjoyment that will always be connected. That's why we collect games. You're collecting things because you remember it from your youth. It's a way of trying to hold on to a memory without letting it slip by, especially in a world of everything being digital download. These physical copies, there's a meaning to it. So when I do shows, I said, the meaning is that we're all connected. You know, so for me to just sign a piece of paper, that's great that you want that on the wall. And I understand that's, you know, it's a cool thing, but I want to give them more. So I always do an extra, like a free video or free this, or just spend more time talking with them because it's that connection. And I said, when the arcades came out, everybody met. It was the social center. It was like the vanilla, you know, malt shop in the 50s. The jukebox brought people together, and the place was the malt shop or whatever. The arcade brought people and a lot of social misfits. You know, there's a lot of people in the gaming community that didn't fit in. They weren't the jocks. They weren't the most popular people, but the video game world was their special place. But they all met at the arcades. So it's where you met your girlfriend, maybe, because a lot of, you know, girls, we know that's the arcade was a social mixer. When that disappeared, well, the gaming world now is in your living room, then it may be in your basement, then your bedroom, and maybe with your friends, but the later you put on the headset, you play online, now you're just completely isolated. So I think of this arc of it being the most socially interactive thing in the world that brings people together, the sharing, the fun, and then it's like talking to someone across the world at night in your underwear with a, you know, soggy bunch of Rice Krispies next to you playing a game, which is cool too.
Yeah.
It said that the total arc is now you're coming back to game shows that didn't exist before. Now you can see all those people again. You can stand in front of all those lit up like a Christmas tree arcades and connect with people, see where the fun and joy began, collect your favorite things, listen to people tell stories. And I said, it's a peace, love, and boom shakalaka. It's like a Grateful Dead show.
Peace, love, and boom shock. I love it. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's an incredible, you know, connection there. Yeah, I was expecting something like, yeah, I did a baby reveal and how that would go. Like, but now somebody has to do a baby reveal. With...
You know what's really funny? If you go to, once again, Who Said What Now, and it's on my website, the demos that I did to show how much fun it could be, like a bachelor party invite, you know, those kind of things. Really good stuff. They stand on their own. So just go and watch it for the sake of having a little entertainment.
Absolutely. And I'll definitely put the links in the video description for everybody to go check out. You know, lastly, with everything you've accomplished and, you know, still going strong here, is there anything left on your bucket list, you know, a holy grail event or project that you still hope to do one day?
Well, the big one is, I didn't mention earlier, the projects I'm, you know, still doing projects. NBA Superstars is the spiritual successor to NBA Jam. I was asked to come in and do the voice for that a few years ago, maybe 2 years ago. George Petro, Eugene Jarvis, if you know your retro gaming stuff, absolute legends. They were at Midway, you know, Narc, Total Carnage, you know, all those great, and they worked on NBA Jam. They worked on all those great games there. Eugene Jarvis is maybe like the Mount Rushmore, like, you know, him, Mark Turmell, all those guys. So they have a company called Raw Thrills. They are the last company. They never gave up of making arcade games. So if you go to Dave & Buster's, start to look for Raw Thrills, Play Mechanics, like all the biggest fun, cool games are theirs. So they made an NBA Jam spiritual successor, 75-inch monitor, subwoofer, boom shakalaka, that puts the boom back in, with all the modern, you know, teams, players, rosters. But for whatever reason, they could not get the NBA license from EA for the NBA Jam. I'm sorry, they got the NBA license, not the NBA Jam name. So on my bucket list was to do another one, like with EA Sports, of having like would have NBA Jam been more important? That period after EA did it, as I said, had they got back on board, that was when the big three, big two, who were the biggest stars of teams putting big twos and threes together. That's what NBA Jam always was. Like, here's your two, here's your three, who do you got? So I want to see the current players, the new younger players, have that same fun for the generation. And we're doing it with NBA superstars, but for me, just bucket list, NBA Jam, and have the crazy all over, because NBA Superstars is a more realistic a job for me. Like, I'm more of a realistic play-by-play announcer as opposed to the crazier version I did with EA Sports. And I thought that's the real fun of NBA Jam. The big heads, a little more cartoonier, me being a little more irreverent, more fun to just run over the top. So doing another NBA Jam would be fantastic. But I would love to see Mutant Football League really take off. And when I see how hard people work, Michael Menheim, his crew doing this, they were in the Ukraine. They're making the game during the war, literally the basement, lights going out, power going out. The game was delayed a year. You're talking about the blood, sweat, and tears, literally, of this small team on a Kickstarter trying to play with the $400 million EA Sports and these big companies, and to stand out. I'd love to see. And it is that point where, like, not for me, but for him, because his whole life since '93, that's his game. Yeah. He rescued it. He saved it. He said it's important to get it back out there. So would love to see that. I'd love to work with, I'd like to work in animation, to do some cartoon voices or something. So, that would definitely be on my bucket list. When I was a kid, like, Simon Bar Senator says underdog must die. And all kinds of fun Saturday morning cartoon things. So, that's why pinball was so much fun for me, because it wasn't just the sports guy. And a couple of years back, I've done 2 Elvira pinball games, and Elvira House of Horrors, we won a TWIPY award for the best callouts, which I do 6 different characters, including her sidekick. So, Elvira, not everybody likes to use the back door, but you do. Hey-oh!
Dude, I think one other thing too. You didn't mention it, but slam dunk contest.
Sorry. There you go. That my big wish list is to be a nod from the NBA. We're talking about the Hall of Fame. That's the Basketball Hall of Fame, not the NBA Basketball. There is no such thing. It's Basketball Hall of Fame. Yep. But it would be really nice to get one nod from the NBA. Still, like Shaquille's, he's a judge, dunk contest, right? For me to introduce the dunk contest, have the players up on the big Jumbotron as the player select with their attributes, whatever, and introduce the judges. And now they have those LED floors. So, like, the paint could be anything. It could be Boom Shakalaka. It could be an NBA Jam logo or switching. And also, one of my catchphrases, it could be brought to you by Dunkin' Donuts. The Dunkin' drive-thru lane is wide open tonight. And hand out the trophy or whatever. But to do a couple calls, be a hype person for one of the dunkers. But jump over a NBA Jam machine when I was the dunk. When I was in Milwaukee, I did the halftime dunk contest by the Rim Rockers, best dunk team in the NBA, and we actually had a one-up arcade machine. So they went off their mini tramps, and I was there leaning on the arcade while they were dunking over me.
Oh my gosh! So
it's just like a fun thing for the NBA. I would like to have the game and myself acknowledged just once, because you know what? When we watched the All-Star game last year, the Kevin Hart thing. It was like they went full on into, like, we're going to let crazy comedy. He's just going to be able to talk during the game, do this, talk to, and it was too much. Yeah. I love comedy like the next guy, but you need to be like in the game, like I did. You have to know when to get in, get out, have a few things that hit the point and get out. And I think if they could let Kevin Hart run for 2 hours, they could have me in there for, a welcome to NBA Jam Dunk Contest 2026.
Absolutely.
Boom shakalaka. Oh, the nail in the coffin with the eulogy dunk. No, literally, he just drove that guy 6 feet under. I think he's dead. Call a paramedic. I mean, come on, we can have fun, right?
Dude, it seems like an absolute no-brainer. Like
the echo of NBA Jam with that kind of off, the coffin, irreverent stuff has a resonance to the fan base, where the Kevin Hart stuff ended up being kind of just a wise guy say, he was, challenging the big guy not to be, go into paint, or it was like, and I know the hardship as a performer, live performer, improv. It's hard. People go, here's the microphone, be funny. Be funny. So I would make sure it was prepared. I said, I know how to get in and get out. Like when I do highlights for NBA teams, like they give me 60-second clip. There's the highlights. Here's the perfect thing to say for this. I don't want to improvise that. I want that to be perfection.
Right.
Like any good improv person. Saturday Night Live, Second City. The reason you do improv at Second City at the end of the night for free is to try out new ideas, new suggestions. You get a seed of something. It's not working completely like I Live in a Van Down by the River, that great piece, Chris Farley.
Oh, yeah.
It was coming out of just like late night improvs, and Bob Odenkirk, who is there, from Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, he was he was at Second City, and he saw that, and he sculpted it into that perfect routine. So what I'm saying is my stuff, as much as I love, and I could do plenty of live things and done center courted at basketball games, but for the NBA dunk contest and being a part of that, it would be a well-rehearsed, orchestrated piece where it would hit, everything goes according to plan, and it has an impact. And everybody's like Shaq there, like, he played the game. So for me to at the center, boom, shakalaka, Shaquille O'Neal, having that resonate for all those guys. I got to do a all-star game in Cleveland a few years ago where I hosted the Boom Shakalaka Club across the street, which Mick Ultra, put a multi-million-dollar ad campaign in using NBA Jam and myself as the first big collaboration with the NBA for the All-Star Game. DJ Jazzy Jeff, Fat Joe, opening night VIP DJs, place is packed to 4 a.m. They have arcade cabinets all over NBA Jam. I got to interview Clyde Drexler and James Worthy on the stage on Saturday, Dikembe Mutombo, rest his soul, and Dominique Wilkins the next day. Introduced them, brought him up, giving him, and he went to the University of, no, Dikembe Mutombo, get that stuff out of here. Or as my wife says, not tonight. And just had them laughing, coming up on stage. And we just shared stories. And I got to ask like a casual fan the fun of like, so tell me, Dominique, like, when did you first dunk and what did it feel like? Because I remember when I was a kid, I always wanted to dunk. So he told me the story of being like 5'8", and he dunked in a game and he didn't really know that he did it because his adrenaline was going so much. And the ref stopped him as he's running back up the floor. He's like blowing the whistle. He goes, "Stop, son." He goes, "What?" He goes, you got fouled on that dunk. He goes, "What?" But that kind of fun. So I've been able to play with NBA legends, right? So I'd be very much at home at the NBA All-Star Game, calling the dunk contest. Yes, nail in the coffin. That's a bucket list on my tombstone.
And if they could just time it up with releasing a new NBA Jam right at that moment, the world would explode. I mean, it would just be amazing. And
then even a couple of years ago, and I didn't sign an NDA, so I can say it, the NBA approached me and said that they've got a new AI tool that's going to allow them to turn real time gameplay into NBA Jam animation footage, right? And if you Google right now AI Spider-Verse, a year or two ago, the commissioner and Wembanyama introduced it, and they said, okay, Indiana Pacers game, Spider-Verse. And the game in real time turned into the Spider-Verse animation. Well, it turns out they made a little mistake. They didn't get any permission from Marvel or the artists or anyone else, but it was just to show the tool that they had. So we know that they had this tool to turn NBA Jam, live footage into NBA Jam. But after 2 or 3 meetings, they said, "Oh, things are stalled." Something happened. I will never know what happened, but they knew that this would be a huge part of bringing people in to a different way. Because, a lot of times people, games are still on their phones or whatever. How they interact is different than the old days. So now if you could take your favorite highlights, rip them in the NBA Jam mode, and you could put your own things or with my voice over it, that would be a cool way to share and to bring in the game world, right? So they know that NBA Jam, the video game, is powerful enough still to elicit that kind of a fan base, like growing of the fan base and having interaction. So I don't think it's a stretch to say, that putting that together with the NBA and All-Star Game is, something that they don't, that they would say, well, that's kid stuff. I think they know because it's they have been part of that generation. When I speak to people now at stadiums in the NBA, like they grew up playing it, 40 or 50 years old, 35, 45 years old. So I think it has a new, a new possibilities just because the guard is changing and people in power might have a certain love, such as yourself and other folks in this that age. They go, yeah, let's make it happen.
We've had a lot of good lessons today. I love diving back into the history of your career and NBA Jam. You know, I just want to thank you personally, not just for the interview, but just for being the voice of millions of memories, you know, is the easiest way I can put it, through many generations. You know, and it seems like it is going to continue on that path for even more generations. So this has been an absolute honor for me. But before we get going, you know, where can people follow you, find you, you know, follow your work or any projects you're working on?
You can find me on Instagram. I don't really get engaged much on certainly X anymore. It's just like there's just so much negativity.
Yeah, I hear you.
To announce something, if there's something I'm doing, I know that there are people out there that can reach a lot of people. So if I'm doing something, check X at Tim Kitzrow. You know, everything just at Tim Kitzrow, you'll find me. And I do have a website, timkitzrow.com or MrBoomShakalaka.com. But also, yeah, look out for if you're, you know, wanting to go to a retro game show, you know, check in on these sites, or, you know, just go wherever your convention place is that you have game shows. Check. I'm going to try to do a lot more shows this year. I took a year off, kind of. I did maybe 5 shows, but I can do up to 20 shows a season. It's a lot of fun. I'd love to meet with folks out in public. But hey, Dave, thank you, and congratulations and good luck on the beginning of your retro adventures. Retro Adventures with Dave. It's a great idea, and I think you got a perfect niche to, like, there's so many people that want to have these kind of conversations, that understand the importance of preserving and getting the backstories. You don't, you know, documentary. Speaking of documentaries, though, you can get some more definitive stuff about NBA Jam, myself, on Vice TV. So if you just do Vice TV NBA Jam, Google search, a 12-part series on Vice TV about the NBA, and they did a full hour on NBA Jam. Walter Payton, Sean Kemp kick it off. I'm in there with Mark, and we kind of tell the whole story of NBA Jam. So, but once again, congratulations, and thank you for having me on.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Yeah, and hopefully if you're at the Cleveland Classic Gaming Convention next year, I'll be there, and you know, we'll meet maybe even beforehand. So we'll
Fantastic.
see. But hopefully this show is big enough by then where, you know, I can walk through the convention and you know, have some great stories to share with people, just like you have done over the years.
We'd love it.
Yeah,
We'd love it.
Thank you so much for your time, Tim. I appreciate everything.
Time winding down at the buzzer, the nail on the coffin, and this one is over. Retro Adventures with Dave is on fire. Kaboom!
That's so awesome.
Hope we see you soon.
Yeah, same here. Thanks, Tim.
Retro Adventures.